Hello, my name is Pam. Welcome back to my channel. This is Total Pamarchy. If you're new here, I make nerdy and pop culture inspired crafts every week, and I usually post on Fridays. Today, have I got a treat for you? We are doing knitted pixel art. Woo! Exciting! You can use knitted pixel art for all sorts of things, and I'm going to show you how. And in order to follow this tutorial, you'll want to know how to knit already, so you can click on these little handy links up above here and follow my tutorials to learn how to knit, or find other knitted tutorials online. There are tons of them to follow that are excellent at teaching you how to knit. But watch this video first so you can be inspired to get out there and get knitting. First thing you're going to do is go into your office supplies and grab some graph paper. You'll also want a pencil and probably an eraser. Then you're going to go print out a reference photo of the design of your choosing. I chose this week to do Mandalorian inspired knitted pixel art, and I'm doing Baby Yoda, aka Grogu, and Mando. So you're going to use your reference photo to sketch out a design on your graph paper, making it nice and square and blocky, just like in Minecraft. If you don't know how to do that, if you have a child who's super into Minecraft, get them to show you. Alternatively, you can find a pixel art design of your image and use that. There are plenty online. As I said, I used Baby Yoda and Mando's helmet. I narrowed it down and just did Baby Yoda's face and the helmet. Then you're going to decide if you want your knitted image to be embossed or debossed, as in you want your image to be sucked in or sticking out. So sunken, depressed, or protruding, what's the other word for that? Raised. We're going to use 2 stitches to create this effect. You're going to use the knit stitch and the purl stitch. For this, you will always be knitting on the right side or front side of the work. Depending on if you knit or purl on the wrong side or the back of the work will determine whether your image is sticking out or sunken in. If you knit on the front and back, the right side and the wrong side of your work, you will create a garter stitch, and that will look like it is sticking out, so debossed. You can see those ridges there, and that's going to make your knitted design look a little bit more raised. If you knit on the right side and purl on the wrong side, it will create a stockingette stitch, and that will create more of a sunken image. For comparison, this image has both. The top is a stockingette stitch and the bottom is a garter stitch. For Grogu, I decided to make him sunken or depressed or debossed in appearance. Except for his eyes, I made them raised. So in order to do this, I made all the stitches around the pixel art to be garter stitch. So that was knitting on the front and knitting on the back of the work. And the stitches of his face that are depressed are in stockingette stitch. So on the face stitches, all of those stitches on the wrong side or the back side rows, I purled those stitches. I knitted on the front every row, and on the pattern side of the back, I purled on those rows. Except for the eyes, I ended up purling on the right side and knitting on the back side to make them pop out. I had just finished a purl row underneath and needed to purl again in that area to have that raised stitch look. So on Baby Yoda, I don't know if you can see him here. Here he is. To be honest, full disclosure, I'm not 100% happy with him, and I didn't have time to make him again, so here we are. I wish I'd made his head a little bit bigger, but anyway. So you have garter stitched around him, so knitting on every row, and then the sunken bit is the stockingette stitch. If you're a beginner, I would suggest that you stick to one solid design. So if you're aiming to do like a Grogu or Baby Yoda, don't put his eyes in there. Maybe just do the outline of his head or his body, something that's sort of a recognizable shape, and do that and have all the stitches of the design one type, either garter or stockingette stitch, and all the stitches around the outer edge be the opposite. When I did Mando for the first time, the helmet, he is a combination of stockingette and garter stitches. I did stockingette stitch around the entire image, so it was sort of sunken in, and then when I went to do the design, I did some garter stitch outline, and then I had sunken in and did stockingette stitch for his little cheek, helmet areas, and then did garter stitch on some of the other areas. His visor is a stockingette stitch as well. So my son, when seeing this, I said to him, I said, what do you think? Do you like it? What does it look like? And he goes, it kind of looks like a villager. He was just playing Minecraft. And the entire time I was making this, I went, oh my God, this looks like a villager. And I don't know whether it was just because they were playing Minecraft, but it looks like, he goes, it looks like a villager with a visor. And I have to agree with him. So, so I made another one. If you're like me with knitting and you're not happy with something, you will try again. So the second time I made him, I haven't cast off this yet. So I did the raised garter stitch around the helmet. I ended up doing the sunken, or making the helmet kind of sunken with a stockingette stitch, and then did some raised garter stitch for his visor. It turned out okay. It's a little bit more recognizable, but again, I saw either Juggernaut's helmet or Magneto's helmet in this. So I think it's because Mando's helmet has all these other little bits that are really difficult to do just working in one color and using raised or depressed stitches to create the image. So I got some helpful tips for you to help make this project a little bit easier. It's important to make a clear legend on your pattern so you know whether you need to knit or purl your stitches. So every time that I made one of these, I had the little stitches, so every little square is a stitch, and I drew a little dash in it. So for these, I just used dashes to denote if I was going to knit on the right side and purl on the wrong side, to help me know where I was going to do stockingette stitch, basically. All of your right side or front rows are going to be knitted. That's important to remember. It doesn't matter what your pattern looks like, you always knit the right side row. Even if you're knitting across here and you have a bit of design here, just you have the design there, so when you did it, you know kind of what it looks like, so you know what you're making, but ignore all that, just knit across the row. All the wrong side or back rows are knitted in the pattern chart and are a combination of knitted or purl stitches. You're gonna knit across, and when you purl back, you're gonna remember what this is why you make the legend, so you made the legend. So on this one, the empty squares mean I knit on the wrong side and right side and wrong side. So I know that on the wrong side, I'm gonna knit 3 stitches, and then these dashes mean that I'm going to purl on the wrong side. So I purl so many stitches, and then I'm going to knit again and purl, etc. So it's good to kind of have a clear legend so you know where to go. I would suggest that you mark each row off as you complete them in order to help you keep track of where you are on your chart. Right to left, so your right to your left. So when you're looking at it, right to left, those are the rows you're going to knit. When you get to the wrong side or the back of the work and you've knit a row and then you're coming back, those are the rows you're going to follow in the chart pattern, which essentially turns out to be every second row of your chart. I used just little arrows to help me figure out where my purl rows were. So I'd knit, check it off, and then I would put a little arrow and then come across and work in chart and check that off. And then I knew exactly where I was. And then I could also clearly see where the arrow was and count over how many stitches I either needed to knit or purl, and I would mark them down on the chart as I went along. It's your pattern, mark it up so that you know where you are. That's okay to do. And then I would come over and put a check there. So I knew exactly what I had completed, and when I got to the next one after I knitted across, I did the same thing, put a little arrow, marked how many stitches I need to go of each, so I could easily follow along and just glance down and look at a number instead of counting stitches every time. To make your pattern really pop out, begin and end your image with a few rows of either garter or stockingette stitch, depending on which stitch you use for your design. So again, if your design is going to be sunken using stockingette stitch, surround it with garter stitch. If your design is going to be raised using garter stitch, surround it with stockingette stitch. at least for a few stitches. You can mix it up. You could do a couple stitches just around and have stockingette stitch, a couple stitches of garter stitch, and then sunken in with stockingette stitch. And you can just do the outline of something if you wanted to. You can do that in garter stitch or stockingette stitch as well. So there's lots of things you can do with this. Just play around with it and have fun. And that's the most important tip I can give you, is just to have fun. It's a craft, it's knitting, it's fun, it's relaxing. What can you use knitted pixel art for? Well, pretty much anything you do in knitting. So Grogu here, I was going to make dishcloths. That's what I thought I was going to do. So I ended up, he could have been more center. I could have made him bigger, but he's down at the bottom here, and these make nice little scrubby bits if you're using them as dishcloths. Just kind of, he's about 30 stitches across, so if you did want to do that, and as knitted as long as I wanted them. You can add impressions to scarves, to sweaters, to hats, pillowcases, pretty much anything. Just use your imagination. And remember to take your time and just have fun with it. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video helpful, useful, entertaining at the very least. My name is Pam. This is Total Pamerky, where you come for the knitting and stay for the Pam. Thanks for watching. Bye! Sign up to be a Pamerkist. Wait, I don't have that yet. My goals are 100 subscribers, so hit that subscribe button. Pixel art. I want to put nerdy in there. Can it be nerdy? Everything has to be nerdy. It's got to be nerdy. Do it. Do it for your brain. It's good for that.